Hi, everyone, and welcome in to Plead Your Case. I'm your host, Austin Bechtold. Today, I'll be joined by the Dr. Caleb Yauger and Brock Owens, our two fall graduates here in 2022 at Waynesburg University, to discuss the possibility of Dan Snyder selling the Washington Commanders. We'll also get into the Houston Astros winning the 2022 World Series, defeating the Philadelphia Phillies in 6 games. And we'll also take a look at some of the records that we think are unbreakable in Major 4 sports. So sit back and relax because it's time to plead your case. Welcome into Plead Your Case. The Washington Commanders owner, Dan Snyder, is reportedly open to selling the franchise after previously having pretty much no chance on his mind that he was going to give up his full stake of the franchise. I'm joined by Caleb Yauger and Brock Owens to discuss what the fate of the Washington Commanders could be like. So great to be alongside both of you. We'll start with the doctor first. Caleb, what do you think is going to happen in this potential selling of the Commanders?
Well, let's first give a little bit of backstory about Dan Snyder. He really dug himself a hole. Not a really good situation for him and the Washington Commanders in general. He says he has a lot of dirt on other NFL owners, but the thing is, there's a couple of things. One, everybody has a little bit of dirt. Let's just put that out there. Two, it just shows a little bit of insecurity. And he says that all of these other NFL owners hate each other when they're like, no, we all hate Dan Snyder. So the pieces are not necessarily adding up, but I don't think Dan Snyder might be the owner after too long after the situation that he's currently put himself in.
Yeah, and Brock, he spoke pretty much just weeks ago that he had no plans to sell. He was not going to be pressured into selling. How about in the middle of October, the Colts owner, Jim Irsay, said, quote, "I believe there is merit to remove him as owner because of the acts that he has done, a 2009 sexual assault allegation, and also tons of allegations and alleged financial concerns with the Washington franchise that has now turned the NFL landscape in Washington upside down."
Yeah, but to remove someone from being an owner of an NFL team is actually pretty difficult. You have to, number one, get the commissioner to actually bring forth a vote between the owners, and then you have to get a 75% vote, so that's 24 out of the 32 franchises, and you know one of them is not going to vote for removing the owner. So 24 of the other 31 franchises basically have to vote for removing that owner. So it's pretty difficult to get an owner actually removed from the team. But as Jim Irsay said, the owner of the Colts, I do believe that they probably could get that vote because, as Caleb was talking about, there's not a lot of people that you're going to find out there that are big Dan Snyder fans. So with everything going on, both with Dan Snyder as an individual and potentially, we don't know if the Commanders are having financial troubles. What I do know is I was actually a little bit surprised when I looked on Forbes about the 32 franchises, how much they're worth. I actually found that the Commanders were ranked 5th by Forbes with about $4.2 billion in their worth behind the Cowboys, Patriots, Giants, and Rams. So I was pretty surprised to see how much they're worth. So I don't think that the financial troubles is like a huge deal, to be honest with you. But I do think that they could potentially remove Dan Snyder, and maybe they brought that to him and said, we can remove you, so either sell it or get kicked out.
And that's part of the whole entire idea of why now. And the Denver Broncos sold earlier this year for $4.65 billion. Dan Snyder is looking to fetch around $7 billion. Now, will that actually be the price of the franchise if it is indeed sold? Probably not. But there are a ton of individuals that have thrown their head into the ring of being able to potentially buy the franchise. Jeff Bezos of Amazon, as well as Jay-Z, Kevin Durant of the Brooklyn Nets has talked about potentially earning a stake in the team. So Caleb, what do you think could happen with the potential sale? What number do you think is going to be the realistic target? Because when you're talking about $4 billion, $7 billion, to us, that's not that big of a difference because we're never going to see that type of money. But overall, that is just a huge chunk of change to command.
Especially command, I see what you did there. But I mean, $7 billion, that is just way, way too much. Like you said, the Denver Broncos selling for under $5 million. And the Washington Commanders, I don't think $7 billion is really worth the asking price. But guys like Jeff Bezos, I mean, he's buying everything. He owns, the world. Let's say that, because he owns Amazon and Amazon Prime, getting Thursday Night Football, which is really, really important. Doing a lot of broadcasts nationally. But for fun, let's just say Elon Musk buys. I'm mostly kidding about that, but who knows? Somebody's going to come up and buy them.
Just a side note, would there be a conflict of interest if Bezos bought the Commanders and also having the stake in Amazon's Thursday Night Football?
That's a great question. I actually don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know if the Commanders would be able to run on Thursday Night Football, to be honest. Like, I don't think it would get shot down just that Bezos is buying it, but I don't know that they would. Do you think they'd be able to run on Thursday Night Football?
I think it's a fascinating idea.
I never even thought of that.
About
that's
what
a good
could
question.
What could happen between everything there? But Brock, what do you think about some potential new owners that could emerge for Washington?
Yeah, well, generally, just to start with the whole $7 billion thing, I see what Dan Snyder's doing. He's starting high, and then he's like, oh, okay, I'll come down a little bit until he gets to the number that he actually thinks is worth selling for, which I think somewhere around $5 billion is a lot more realistic to get for the franchise. But you're not going to find very many people that have that much money. So, I mean, if Jeff Bezos is looking to buy, I mean, he's one of the most rich people in the world. So, of course, if he's looking to buy seriously, he could get the money and buy the franchise. One guy I really want to see, and I heard he's interested, is RG3, Robert Griffin III. Obviously, he doesn't have the money. He would have to join forces with people, but say Jeff Bezos is in, I'd like to see RG3 also in with him and put a little bit of money in. And since he's a former football player, and I've really liked when RG3's been on broadcasts, I've really liked him on broadcast, to be honest with you. So I think he could do something in the front office, and I'd like to see him in on his former team, the team that drafted him.
Yeah, going off of your point, I don't know if I necessarily like Jeff Bezos himself just owning the team. If he could pitch in with somebody like RG3 or somebody else, I really like that combination, and things could really work out for this team.
Well, and this is also a historic franchise. Washington has won a couple of Super Bowls in the 80s. They've had great teams. They've had great players, Hall of Fame players. This isn't like we're talking about a newer franchise and, pick any of the expansion teams in the last 25, 30 years, whatever it might be, or a team that has not had the success that Washington has that potentially might not even have won Super Bowls. But great stuff so far as Dan Snyder is exploring his options as to what could happen with the future of the ownership group of the Washington Commanders. Coming up next, Ethan Spozarski is picking games. He has a new challenger. Find out who it is with Logan Lepiscopo on the panel as well. Logan Arblaster will challenge him. Coming up here on Plead Your Case.
Have you ever been to the Everly Library? If not, you should, because it's great. They have books of all different genres: history, biography, fiction. Try The Evolution of Life, Life of Pi, or Jurassic Park. So what if books aren't your thing? Try movies, like Frozen, or TV shows, like Lost. Books and DVDs aren't the only thing, though. Take a trip to the second floor. Welcome to the Writing Center. These tutors will tell you everything you need to know about writing a paper, and they'll help revise your essays. Now let's head back down. Behold, the Knox Learning Center. Need to print something out 5 minutes before your next class because you procrastinated? No problem. You can also print off pictures of dogs. Because, well, you can. So grab your homework, laptop, and textbook, and study diligently. Bring your lunch too. Actually, you can't. That's illegal. Now you know the Everly Library. Stop by anytime. Seriously, it's open all week.
Welcome back to another edition of the NFL Pick'em segment here on Plead Your Case. I'll be your host for this segment, Logan Lepiscopo. Last week, Colin Rhodes faced off against Ethan Spozarski, and well, you see who the winner is here. Ethan made out victorious with the one pick difference that the two had. He ended up picking it right. He'll be taking on his competitor, Logan Arblaster, in this week's picks. Boys, No hands across the table. Nice, clean fight. We're getting right into it with our Thursday night matchup. Falcons and Panthers, reigning champ. Who you got?
I'm going to have to go with the Atlanta Falcons in this situation. Marcus Mariota's proven hit. He's a good starting quarterback. They have 2 rushers over 300 yards. Their backup, who's Aldier, he's become the 400-yard rusher because Cordell Patterson's missed 3 games this year. And then they also got 2 receivers who are over 300 yards as well. That does include Drake London. So I think Falcons going the right way. Panthers are not going the right way, having a little bit of QB trouble. Chuba Hubbard's still hurt. DJ Moore's the only receiver who's putting up yards. He has a little over 400 yards. Give me the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, Ethan, I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. I think the Falcons are going to win as well. The Panthers just haven't been playing well lately. They gave up 5 touchdowns just to Joe Mixon himself. So I think the Falcons are going to take that game also.
So then we hop into our Sunday window. We're starting early, 9:30 in the morning over in Germany. We've got the Seattle Seahawks, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ethan, who you got in this game?
Well, unlike ESPN, I am going to go with the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, Ethan, I think the Seahawks have found something with Kenneth Walker and Geno Smith, but I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one. I think the Bucs are going to take the game. I think you can't ever count the GOAT out. I think Tom Brady's the guy, and he found some confidence again last week after getting a comeback win. So I think the Bucs are going to steal this game.
In our next game, we start the 1 o'clock window. Minnesota Vikings at the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen dealing with a little bit of injuries, but Ethan, who you have in this game?
Well, coming into today, I was a little iffy, and I was thinking of taking Minnesota in this situation just because of the team they are. And on top of that, Josh Allen with his elbow, is he going to be out? If he is going to be out, it is for a very short period of time, 1 to 2 weeks. But then we started talking before the show, and I am going to go with the Buffalo Bills to win this football game.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you again. I think the Vikings are probably the least talked about 7-1 team I've ever seen. They're a really, really good team, and I know the Bills are too, but with Josh Allen's status being completely up in the air, I'm going to have to take the Vikings in this one.
So our next game of the 1 o'clock window, an NFC North showdown between the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. Ethan, who do you have in this game?
Well, I wore his jersey last week. Give me the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields looks incredible. No, I lied. That's not incredible. He looks really good. He's played the best 3 games of his career, his short career so far. The Bears' defense just gave away Roquan Smith, but I think that this offense has been able to be productive despite the defensive somewhat struggles. Give me Chicago.
Yeah, I'm going to take Chicago as well. I think that Justin Fields has been improving every week, and giving him more additions like Chase Claypool in the offense will only help them get better. And I think the Detroit Lions are an easy matchup for them this week, and they'll beat the Lions.
So our next game we have is between the Denver Broncos and the Tennessee Titans. Ethan, who do you have in this matchup?
For me, this game is going to be, I think it's going to be closer than most people expect, but I do think Tennessee does pull away with this one. Tennessee coming off a loss in Kansas City on a Sunday night game. However, they did play really well, and that starts and ends with that Tennessee defense. They were able to put up or shut up. They were able to limit Kansas City 17 points the entire game, and they only got a chunk of those at the very end. So Tennessee defense is going in the right direction. I think they continue to make Russell struggle with his ability to not be able to get to all his receivers. Give me Tennessee.
Yeah, Russell Wilson's been struggling too much for me to be able to take them in this matchup. I got the Titans as well.
So our next game we have, I think this one's going to be a pretty quick selection here. Jaguars at Chiefs. Ethan, who do you have in this one?
Chiefs.
Chiefs here. You can't slow down Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce.
Absolutely not. Next game we have up, an AFC matchup between the Browns and Dolphins. One team very much improving from last year. Another team kind of on the decline with still no Deshaun Watson. Who do you have, Ethan?
Well, that's only for one more week. As of right now, Deshaun Watson should be coming back week 11. Spencer, we'll play the guitar together soon, I promise. But as of right now, I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins. Tua, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, best QB and wide receiver duo in the NFL. They also got, of course, Mike Gesicki, the man with the best gritty in the NFL. No question for me. Give me Miami.
Yeah, I'm going to take Miami too. Tyreek Hill is really off to a sensational start this year. No other wide receiver has been where he's at right now, and he's on track to break the single season receiving yards in a season over Kelvin Johnson's record. So I think the Dolphins take this game as well because their offense is just too much.
The Houston Texans move into New York to take on a very surprising Giants team. Ethan, who are you picking in this game?
I'm going to take the surprising Giants here.
Yeah, Saquon Barkley's him. Take the Giants.
I couldn't agree more. Saquon's back in action, as we all appreciate. Since his rookie year, he's been injured a lot. Moving on to our next game, Saints and Steelers. Logan, I have a feeling of where you're going, being the jersey you're wearing. But Ethan, how about you?
Oh, believe it or not, I'm going to probably side with Logan in this one and take the Pittsburgh Steelers to beat the New Orleans Saints. And that's only because the Steelers are coming off a bye week and we haven't seen anything disappointing enough to change us otherwise.
Yeah, you see I got the jersey on. As soon as we get TJ back, the swagger's back. The swagger's back in the locker room. The Steelers are going to easily take this game. And honestly, Sparky, I think that the distribution of the ball is going to be more in George Pickens' hands, more in Jalen Warren's hands this week. And it's just going to, the Steelers are going to open it up and play Steelers football again this week.
So 2 Steelers picks, but a close game and a blowout game. So we'll see what happens with that matchup. Moving into the 4 o'clock window, the Colts, who have just fired their head coach, Frank Reich, go in to play the Las Vegas Raiders, who have been struggling this season despite the addition of Devontae Adams. Ethan, who do you have?
Well, for me, I'm going to take the Raiders in this situation. I think new head coach, new starting quarterback, especially as a rookie. No Jonathan Taylor. That's a recipe for disaster. I'm going to take the struggling Raiders in this situation. Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams. I think David Carr finds a way to work this out. Give me the Raiders.
Yeah, the Raiders are going to rebound this week. The Colts QB situation has just been too much up in the air for me to take them, and they also have the new head coach, like you said. So I think the Raiders are going to rebound this week.
Well, I can only keep my fingers crossed and hope the Raiders somehow manage to pull out a victory this week after losing to the Jaguars, after having a 17-point lead. But aside from last week, continuing this week's games, Cowboys at Packers, a very much struggling Packers team. Ethan, who are you picking?
I made the fatal mistake of picking the Packers last week to win their football game. I thought they were going to be able to rebound and reset against Detroit, and that was completely not the case. Detroit gets their second win of the year. But nonetheless, I'm not picking the Packers again. I'm going to stick with the Cowboys. Yeah, they had a bye week last week, but I think, again, one team's going the right way, the other team's going the other way. I'm going to take Dallas.
Yeah, Dallas has played great this year, and Tony Pollard is a big part of them doing well this year. I'd like to see them use him more than they've used Zeke, because for some reason Jerry Jones is like in love with Ezekiel Elliott. But yeah, I think the Cowboys win this game, and I think Aaron Rodgers' era is kind of going to come to an end here.
So we move on to an NFC West battle between the Cardinals and the Rams. Ethan, who do you have in this game?
Well, another toss-up for me. When we were talking about before we had get ready to record, I was like the Rams, obviously, and then I kept thinking, and honestly, I made the mistake 2 weeks in a row again, picking the Rams, thinking they were going to be able to turn around. I can't do that again. I am going to take the Arizona Cardinals to defeat my LA Rams this year. They're struggling. I think James Conner should play. They are going to be down Marquise Brown, but I think Robbie Anderson can make an impact. If they get him involved, he can be deadly. On top of that, I'm a big fan of Zach Ertz. Give me the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, both teams are slumping, but I think the Rams are going to be the ones to stop their slump. I think that their Super Bowl hangover is going to come to an end, and I think they're going to beat the Cardinals this week.
And our last game for Sunday Night Football, Chargers. You're representing Justin Herbert today versus the 49ers. Who are you picking?
Well, despite me wearing the Justin Herbert jersey and me being a Justin Herbert big fan, I am going to take the San Francisco 49ers. I've thrown you all off the scent. But nonetheless, Christian McCaffrey, 183 total yards, 3 touchdowns, hitting the Triple Crown. That's unbelievable. Brandon Ayuk, too. Give him some credit. When he's available, he can be good. I think Jimmy G gets him more involved. No one throws to George Kittle more than Jimmy G whenever he's in. I think the San Francisco defense is going to build back up as well. So that recipe is going to have me pick the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I think the 49ers offense is really good, like you said, but I also think another reason why the 49ers can win this game is because your guy, Justin Herbert's been struggling so much this season. So I'm going to have to clown you a little bit with wearing that jersey and still taking a 49ers pick.
Whoa, buddy. Whoa. Oh,
All right, let's stay on our sides of the table, guys. All right, you picked the Niners. You deserve to get clowned a little bit for that. Our last game, Monday Night Football, an NFC East matchup. Used to be known as the NFC Least. Has turned into a pretty good division. Commanders, Eagles. Who do you have, Sparky?
Well, the NFC Beast now, but nonetheless, I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles to win this football game because they look like one of the best teams in the NFL, definitely the best team in the NFC, no question. Jalen Hurts having MVP-type numbers and stuff this year. A.J. Brown, I didn't think this connection was going to work at all. I've been proven mega wrong. Devontae Smith looks really good, too. Defense looks good. Another successful recipe, like I've been saying all episode. Give me Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think the Commanders are frauds. I think Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown are simply too much for them to handle, and I think the Eagles will stay undefeated for another week.
Well, it looks like the Commanders will have a new owner coming in soon for the franchise. But that's going to do it here for our NFL Pick'em segment on Plead Your Case. There are 4 teams on a bye this week, however. We have the Bengals, Patriots, Jets, and Ravens all having a bye week. So with that being said, that's it for our Pick'em segment. 3 differences, which means we will have a clear-cut winner for next week's episode of Plead Your Case. Stay tuned for the rest of today's episode.
This is producer Caleb Yauger, and you are watching The Buzz.
The 2022 Major League Baseball season has come to a close as the Houston Astros are the World Series champions, defeating the Philadelphia Phillies 4-1 in Game 6 in Houston to win the Astros' second ever title. Yordan Alvarez played hero, guys, as he hit a 3-run home run off of Jose Alvarado. That was the clincher. He hit it to the moon over the batter's eye. And Brock, once that home run was hit and the ball was obliterated and gone from everybody to see, the series was over.
It felt over, at least. I mean, the Astros bullpen was basically unhittable in the games that they won in the World Series. The bullpen pitched 12 2/3 innings. They gave up 1 earned run. I mean, their bullpen was great. It had a lot of great people in it, and they showed in the playoffs, in the World Series. They were going out and they were shutting the game down exactly as they were supposed to do. And as soon as Yordan Alvarez hit that home run, it was over. It just was. So even though Yordan didn't have a great World Series, he only got 3 hits. That one was that won it. I mean, what else can you say? That was a huge hit. He led the Astros in RBIs with 6 in the World Series. But Jeremy Pena, obviously being the World Series MVP, was pretty much also the hero.
Right, the first rookie position player to ever win World Series MVP. He also won the ALCS MVP. He's only 25 years old. Here's a guy that has come in and played at shortstop, to steal something from Chris Collinsworth, and was just the answer for Carlos Correa, played better in the postseason than anybody could have imagined, was better than Carlos Correa, arguably, in the postseason when he was a member of the Astros in the last couple of years before leaving and going to the Minnesota Twins. Pena was great. Now, he had a home run, 3 RBIs, played great defense, and overall, after hitting .345 in the playoffs, ended up being the World Series MVP. But the Astros overall, as a collective unit, just looked overall like the better team and overmatched Philadelphia, who was the last team in the NL.
Yeah, last year for the Astros, Jeremy Pena was kind of in the shadow, like you said, of Carlos Correa, and he only had, 182 minor league games under his belt. So he had a big shoes to fill, but obviously he did it. Gold Glove Award, MVP of the 2022 AL Championship, and World Series MVP, MV Pena, people.
He was absolutely fantastic, but the Philadelphia Bats, well, they weren't. Philly struck out, count it, 71 times in the series. It's a World Series record. Philly hit 163 in the series. That's the worst for any series that has gone at least 6 games. And how about in the final 30 innings, Brock? Philadelphia hit below 100.
Yeah, I mean, it's well documented that batting averages are going down in the MLB, that strikeout rates are going up in the MLB, but this is unprecedented. As you said, both records of low batting average, of high strikeouts. They just couldn't touch the ball in the last couple of games. They just couldn't do it. And, of course, in one game, they really, really couldn't do it as the first combined no-hitter in World Series history, only the second no-hitter overall in World Series history. As, you know, I mean, how can you just go out in the World Series and just get no hit? I know it's tough to hit these guys, and, you know, Christian Javier is a great pitcher, and then obviously I already talked about the bullpen, but I mean, you're fighting for your lives out there, and they just didn't look like they were in the batting box.
Well, and Caleb, also, Philadelphia hit 5 home runs. Lance McCullers, everybody was talking about, he was tipping pitches. Philadelphia was off to a fantastic start. It looked like they were going to jump out to a commanding series lead, ended up going up 2-1. And then Houston took control of it with the no-hitter and did not look back. Philadelphia scored 15 runs in the first 3 games, 3 in the final 3 games.
Yeah. Credit to Philadelphia, though. They went out on a 2-1 series lead at one point against the Houston Astros, the first World Series for them since 2009. But the Phillies, you know, they took a turn, and obviously the numbers that you spat out, just like it completely changed for them. And I think everybody was kind of rooting for Philadelphia, especially they started out as a 6th seed and facing against that tough number 1 seed against the Houston Astros. And I know that there were a lot of videos of the Houston Astros trying for people to say, hey, they're cheating again. Look at this video, like the minuscule details. But Houston was the better team at the end of the day, and they got the championship.
Yeah, and I'd also just like to add to Caleb's, you know, congratulations to the Phillies almost. That, like he said, they were the 6th seed. But what's really, really particular about that is there's only been 5 teams that made the playoffs up until this year. This was the first year that they had that 6 teams on each side. So the Phillies wouldn't have even made the playoffs in any other year other than the COVID year. But let's take that out. Other than that, they wouldn't have made the playoffs in any other year leading up to this one. And then they go on a run and make the World Series and go up 2-1 in the World Series. Of course, they dropped the last 3 games, so of course they don't really care, you know, that they made the World Series. It's all about finishing. But it was a great run for a team that really wouldn't have even been in the playoffs up until this season.
That's right, and just how about the sadness? You mentioned about how, you know, happy it has to be for Philadelphia to be able to get to the World Series. How about the sadness that ensued? That day that Philadelphia lost the World Series, they also lost the MLS Cup. The Philadelphia Union also lost. It was great times in Philly until they were not. It was not sunny in Philadelphia on that Saturday afternoon and evening for the Philadelphia Phillies as well as the Philadelphia Union. A tough day in Philadelphia, but right now the Eagles still undefeated.
Yeah, at least they have the Eagles.
Yeah.
They still have the Eagles.
We'll see how that goes.
And at least they're better than Pittsburgh sports right now. Sorry to put that out
well,
there, but it is.
It's, you know, it's true.
It is true.
And as we transition into some more sports that are going on, not just in the baseball landscape, we will talk about some of the records that we do not think have any chance of being broken. Or maybe there is some records that we think might be broken that our panelists are going to disagree on. That's next, coming up here on Plead Your Case.
You're watching WCTV, where we aim to bring you the best local coverage of what you care about most. Everything from local businesses to hometown sports and the latest weather. We're keeping up to date with what you need to know about issues that affect our campus and our community. We're telling the stories that matter, celebrating our past, our future, and our potential. So tune in for all the latest buzz right here on WCTV Channel 14, Waynesburg.
Welcome back into Plead Your Case. It's time to talk about unbreakable records, or are they, in major sports. Now, let's go to Brock first. I think that Tom Brady just breaking through 100,000 passing yards is going to be the top of the milestone that maybe Patrick Mahomes is the only one that has a chance of breaking in the future.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one to break because you've got to come out of college early and be pretty young, and then you've got to play a long time to be able to do that and be very successful, stay healthy for a lot of years, It's going to be very difficult to do that. But one that I have in the NFL that I don't think is ever going to be broken is Paul Krause's 81 career interceptions. Offenses are just designed to not throw interceptions that much these days, and people don't. There's a lot of checkdowns. There's a lot of 5 and under passes. Everyone runs a West Coast offense these days. It's just not unfamiliar to see. And right now, the active career leaders for interceptions, there's 2. There's a tie. Harrison Smith and Devin McCourty have 33 career interceptions, so they're not even kind of close. And I don't think anyone's going to come all that close unless they just start getting a ton of interceptions like Trayvon Diggs did. But that's going to be like a one-year thing because Trayvon Diggs is actually playing a lot better in actual coverage this year rather than just baiting quarterbacks into throwing interceptions. So you've got to do that for a long time to come close to these interception numbers that quarterbacks used to throw. And I don't think they're going to do it.
Well, and also, if you're a top corner, like let's say you're Darrelle Revis or whoever the corner might be, Ty Law, they're going to throw to the opposite side of the field away from you, and you're going to get less chances to make interceptions. Caleb, what is a record that you think will never be broken?
I'll mention 2 records. They're not necessarily positive records. First one is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' 26 consecutive losses between 1976 and 77. I think that NFL teams have, they have certain standards. They're at least going to win a game. I know the Cleveland Browns have come close and the Detroit Lions have, but I don't think that 26 consecutive losses, that's up in the air. But also, Brett Favre, 336 interceptions over 20 seasons. Ben Roethlisberger had 211 interceptions in 18 seasons. And I think if you're throwing that many interceptions in today's passing game, then you're not going to be playing much on the field.
One in baseball that I don't think has a chance of ever being crushed is Cal Ripken's Iron Man streak. 2,632 games in a row. It started on May 30th, 1982. It ended September 19th, 1998.
Yeah, that's the thing with baseball is the game has changed so much that you can go through and almost every single record is completely unbreakable in today's game. Over the summer, I was going to make a list of the top 10 most unbreakable MLB records, and just to show my dad, me and my dad do a lot of that stuff together.
Hope you didn't put the AL home run record on there.
I obviously did not do that, but what I meant to do a top 10, and I ended up listing 30 of them because they just kept coming. There was just no end to the amount of unbreakable records in the MLB. With that said, the undisputed most unbreakable record in all of sports history, I believe, comes from the MLB, and it is Cy Young's 749 complete games. If you're wondering what the active record is, it is Adam Wainwright with 28. Justin Verlander has 26. Clayton Kershaw has 25. No one's ever going to do that.
If you're wondering what a complete game is at this point, it's a fair question to ask. We don't see it anymore with the expanded use of bullpens, and if you throw 100 pitches, you have to come out of the ball game. It is an oddity to see complete games anymore. You might see, a handful for just a division maybe in a given year, Caleb. Some other ones that I look at, especially, let's go to the NBA now. They include the Boston Celtics. 8 straight championships from 1957 to 66. Bill Russell, 24.87 rebounds per game in the 1963-64 season. And also to go to hockey for another reference, Wayne Gretzky scored 92 goals in the 1981-82 season. He has 2,857 career points. The next closest is Mark Messier. He's more than 900 points away from that.
Absolutely. Going back to Major League Baseball, I want to touch on those, the Cal Ripken and Cy Young. Cal Ripken, that is the #1 record that sticks out in my mind. Like, there's nobody at any level of baseball, I don't think that's ever going to break that. 2,632 games, that is absolutely ridiculous. And for the Cy Young, 749 complete games, one would have to average 40 complete games in 19 consecutive seasons.
If you throw every game in Major League Baseball, you throw 33 games, by the way, with a 5-man rotation. So you'd have to run a 4-man rotation, pitch every game to completion. And for like 20 years. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Well, games were
obviously.
completely different back then.
Yeah,
Rosters
that's-
weren't as large as they are now, and you just did not have the plethora of pitching talent that we do now.
Yeah, it used to be you have like 2 pitchers on the roster, you throw one out there, and they pitch the entire game. Then the next day you throw the next pitcher out there, they pitch the entire game, and then the other one's back out there. I mean, that's just how it worked. But moving on to the NHL, where Austin was going, the one I had down was Wayne Gretzky's total points. 2,857 career points is just completely unbreakable in my mind, because Wayne Gretzky has 1,963 assists, which is better than Jaromir Jagr's 1,921 points, and he is the second most points in NHL history. So, I mean, there's just nothing touching him, because not only does Wayne Gretzky have more assists than anyone else has points, he's also the all-time leader in goals scored.
Also has 9 MVP awards.
He's incredible, as is Nolan Ryan's, over 5,000 career strikeouts, 5,717 strikeouts. There are so many records from just years ago where the game was completely different than it is now. Now, strikeouts are at a premium, but Nolan Ryan, the amount of years that he played and the wear and tear that his arm took, and I mean, he played just multiple decades, multiple different teams, and just seemed like he never slowed down. These are just the uber athletes and just some of the best athletes and players in any sport that we're ever going to see in our lifetimes.
Yeah, I just want to hit the NBA quickly as well, because what I have down is Wilt Chamberlain, just a whole bunch of stuff that he did for records. But the number one thing that I think is the most unbreakable in NBA history is Wilt Chamberlain's 118 career 50-point games. The second most would be Michael Jordan with 31. And by the way, Wilt Chamberlain has 32 60-point games in his career. The second most would be Kobe with 6. And Wilt Chamberlain had, you guessed it, 6 70-point games in his career. It's only been done 11 times, so Wilt Chamberlain did it more than everyone else combined.
And Wilt Chamberlain also had a season where he averaged 50.4 points a game in one season. That might be up in the air, but now you see guys that max out at maybe 35 or 37. You're not really seeing 50 points a game because you have just that dispersion of talent all in one team. Even though Steph Curry can go off for 35 any night, I don't think 50 points is ever really going to be achieved again, in my opinion.
Caleb, is there any other records that we might have missed out on that you had?
We have so many. I think we covered we're missing probably a lot of them, but
There probably is, but I think we hit on a bunch of them.
yeah.
The last one I want to throw out is because, like I said, I did a lot of research in the baseball records this last summer. So I'm just going to throw out one more I think is completely unbreakable, even though I could throw out 20. Pete Rose's career hits.
Yes.
Never going to be done. You could average 200 hits for 20 seasons and you'd still come up short. It's not going to happen. Nobody gets 200 hits like at all these days. I don't think anyone got 200 hits at all this season in the MLB, and it just doesn't happen where people are going to play even that long, let alone get 200 hits for that long. And even if you did, you still wouldn't have the same amount of hits as Pete Rose did.
Ichiro would have been the only one that could have came close to it, and he did, but just ended up coming over and playing for the Seattle Mariners just a little bit later on to be able to break that record than he potentially could have been able to break Pete Rose's record. But guys, great stuff the entire show here today. Great amount of records and content that probably will never be broken. So for Brock Owens and Caleb Yauger, as well as our producer Logan Lepiscopo and Ethan Spozarski and Logan Arblaster on our NFL Pick'em mini segment, I'm Austin Bechtold saying so long and thank you for pleading your case with us here today.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.